Today I want to talk about how we bought our first property because it's a little bit atypical. It's been over a year since we first found out about this house. We found it April of 2020. We didn't have a lot of money to invest in a property, so we had to get a little bit creative. We knew that would come with a lot more work on our part, as you can tell from what you may have seen already from the house. I started looking through the property appraiser's website, searching for houses that are not suitable for occupancy. Basically means abandoned homes. While you're in there, you can see information about who the owner is, where the owner lives, because if their mailing address is different than the actual site address of the property, probably means that they own the property for a rental or some sort of investment, and they don't actually live there. So that was one of my criteria, to find the houses that the owners didn't live there and were either out of state or out of the city. In this case, with this house, they had a different address. It wasn't out of state, it was still within Florida. But I noticed that the name was a Brazilian name, so it got me thinking that they might not even be in the country anymore. Originally, they had bought it as a tax deed auction. On a separate side note, a tax deed auction is when a homeowner doesn't pay their property taxes. The city will be able to foreclose on it to recoup that money in taxes that the property owner didn't pay. This couple, they bought it at a tax deed auction in 2015, but since 2015, nothing has happened at the house. No taxes have been paid, water, electric, nothing has been turned on. That really got me thinking that they might not even be in the state anymore. So I started searching, I was sending emails to this person, who I thought was this person at least. I found businesses that they had registered previously in Florida. So I tried to email those. I called a bunch of phone numbers that were supposed to be associated with this property owner, and nothing was working. So I went on to Facebook and Instagram, found as many people with the name of the property owner, and just started messaging saying, "Hi, I'm curious if you are the person with a property in Florida." I didn't give the address because I didn't want people to be like, "Oh yeah, that is me," even if it wasn't them. I got most people just saying, "Hey, I'm not that person." But one person wrote back and was like, "Oh, what property in Florida? Can you give me the details of it?" I was like, well, if they're asking a question, then they probably don't know. So I suspected that they weren't the actual owner. They got angry at me because I wasn't giving them the information of the property. So I blocked the person. And then the next day, the actual real owner of the property messaged me back on Instagram. She gave me her WhatsApp number, so I was like, okay, good. They're not in Florida anymore because, we don't use WhatsApp here. Val called them. Turned out that in 2015, they were, in fact, living in Florida, and they bought 3 properties at that tax deed auction. 2 houses and 1 lot of land. A couple months after they bought these properties at the tax deed auction, one of their parents got sick. They rushed and they sold one of the houses, which was the other house they bought, and they didn't have time to sell this house or the lot of land. So they just went back to Brazil. They basically forgot about it until I messaged them on Instagram. They basically said, well, we didn't know we still had this house because we thought that it would have gone back to the tax deed auction because they haven't been paying taxes. So after Val had the conversation with them, we talked together to kind of come up with a price that we thought that we would throw at them. With all of the nervousness that I had and Val had, she called them back again, said, okay, is there a price that you want for the property? And they said $25,000. We said, okay, that sounds good, because that's actually the number that we were thinking about. So we made that verbal agreement for the $25,000, and they said that they wanted their friend in Miami, who's a realtor, to help close the deal. Then, this is where it got bad. Some real estate agents are not ethical. The real estate agent got involved in the picture, never talked to us about negotiating terms or prices or anything. We want to buy it, we've already agreed to it, and then the real estate agent said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I've got some buyers lined up. She just made up a whole bunch of stories, and she said at the end of the day, if I don't get a buyer lined up, then I'll just buy it for $25,000. We're like, all right, well, this is crazy. So we thought that it was kind of killed. We're a little frustrated because we had a good deal, but then we weren't able to close it because of this person. A couple months later, I get an email from this local kind of wholesaler, and they're trying to wholesale it for $70,000. What a wholesale means is that you get a property under contract. You say, hey, I'm going to buy your property. In this case, the realtor was saying, hey, we've got a buyer for $25,000. Then they go out and list it to other investors for a price higher than that. In this case, it was $70,000 that they were listing it for. If they would have sold it at that price, they would have made the difference between the $70,000 and the $25,000. But once I saw that, I was like, oh, this realtor is just basically trying to cheat her friends. Well, the house went back up to the tax deed auction. Val and I got ready to bid on the house. We really knew at this point that the realtor was lying. It was like days before the tax deed auction, and there's been no movement on the property at all. We participated in the auction online, and we're up next.
Okay, I bid 25.
Whoa, I'm the only one bidding against this person. Shaking.
39, less than 10 seconds.
Come on.
41, 200.
Oh, they're gonna get it 6,100.
Okay.
We lost it. Our max bid was $60,000. It went for $60,100. We were bummed out. We thought that we had lost the house for the second time. We got a little emotionally involved. I know you're not supposed to. It's our first property, but it was such a good deal, and in like a nice upcoming neighborhood, close to the river. We got it together and we said, okay, we're gonna move on. Let's forget about this property. A couple of days later, I looked back through like the tax deed portal. Within 24 to 48 hours, you have to pay the rest of the money that you bid on the house. They didn't do that. I had a feeling that the person who outbid us didn't really know what they were bidding for. This house on Google Maps used to show the neighbor's house, which doesn't have fire damage or anything. I'm guessing that this person who outbid us only did a Google Maps search. Maybe they did other, online searches to see like liens. But my guess is they didn't visit the property. Once they won the bid for $60,000, that would have been an amazing price for the next door neighbors. They probably came out to the house and was like, oh crap, we messed up. We bid on the wrong house. My guess is they just said, okay, let's not deal with it. We got excited again because they didn't pay. So we're just waiting and waiting for them to repost it for another tax deed. And it took a couple months. At this point, it's probably been 6 to 9 months since we first found the property and made a first verbal deal with the homeowners. So we said to ourselves, we'll still keep looking for houses, try and bid on other properties at auctions. 3 weeks before the tax deed auction for this house, I was driving up to participate in a different foreclosure auction. On the way, I called Val and we were talking. I asked her to call the property owners just to see, because if we were to win this condo, that means that in a few weeks we wouldn't be able to bid on this house. So she called me back in just a few minutes and she said, turn around. So they wanted to make a deal with us. They were really not happy with their friend, their ex-friend, who was their real estate agent. So we started the negotiation process again. We ended up negotiating that we would buy the house for $34,000. It turns out that their friend was putting a lot of pressure on them to accept $25,000. They went along with what their friend said because she's a real estate agent and would know more about the value of the property. So if you are looking for a real estate agent out there, make sure you do your due diligence to make sure that they have your best interest in mind. And if you're a real estate agent out there, don't do what this lady did. Be a nice person, please. Be honest. That day we sent over a purchase agreement. They signed it via DocuSign. We got the ball moving, but we still weren't. I still felt like we would lose this property for a third time. I just felt like something was gonna go wrong. Today I still feel like that. I feel like tomorrow, or right now, sitting at the house, somebody's gonna come up and say, hey, you guys don't own this house. What are you doing here? The reason why this is atypical is, one, the way that I found the house. Two, because we ended up doing a quick claim deed. When we bought the property, instead of getting a warranty deed through a title company, the quitclaim deed just basically says, hey, previous owner, sign over your rights to the property to the new owner. The new owner will take on all debts and encumbrances that are associated with that property. And I did that because there were a lot of code enforcement liens. If I would have just went with a warranty deed, we would have had to pay off all of the liens, which would have made the price higher. This couple wouldn't have accepted $34,000 because they would have had to pay off all these other liens, making it less. That was the money that they wanted, the cash that they wanted out of the deal. These code enforcement liens are negotiable where the property is. You apply to the city council magistrate and you get them to, you apply with the city council. We actually have our hearing date next week that I have to go to. All of this long story is that we might be able to save $7,000 by doing the quit claim deed and petitioning these code enforcement liens. So yeah, we ended up working with a real estate attorney to draw up the quitclaim deed, to put our money in escrow and pay the sellers, translate the deed since the owners were in Brazil. Then the deed was recorded. The attorney did all that. To kind of sum it all up, we bought a house for pretty cheap in a decent neighborhood because we had persistence. We didn't give up on this thing, even though we lost the deal a couple of times. We were willing to go outside of our comfort zone and do things we were unsure of and not just go the traditional route. And we were willing to, I don't know. If you've watched this rambling session, thank you. Now, I'll get back to work.